Hello and welcome to Smart Insight Traders. My name is Alan, and this is the weekly roundup for what has been a very exciting week starting on Monday, the 3rd of June. When we started this week, we had a weekly bullish fair value gap highlighted here in white, and I had mentioned in my last roundup that an sustainable rally will only ensue after we have tapped into this. We got the exit polls, and the exit polls euphoria gave us a huge gap up on Monday, a 1900 points gap up, and we got this bullish candle. To be honest, I didn't know what to make of it. It didn't make any sense to me. So I did not take any trades on Monday. The premiums were too high and there wasn't any good setup to be a part of. So I didn't trade on Monday. Before we look into the price action that happened on Tuesday, the day the actual election results came out, I want you to look at something here. Price has been traveling inside this channel, respecting this trend line, and gradually making its way upwards. Below this trend line is a huge pool of liquidity. A lot of long term players who have been invested in the market would put their stop loss at a close below this trend line. High impact events infuse a lot of volatility in the market and give the market algorithm a chance to create such huge volatile prices which can then grab the liquidity sitting under here. And that is exactly what we saw as the numbers started coming in, and it was clear that the incumbent government did not have the kind of majority that the exit polls showed, and we got this huge red candle. This was a very fast move with we had a massive range starting at about 50,600, 700, and went all the way down to 46,200. This is a big move. The range for the day was about 4,600 points. That is just crazy. A couple of trades that were possible on this day, I'll show you that. Let's go into the 15 minutes time frame. This is the 15 minutes time frame, and here you can see that after the first couple of candles we got this fair value gap between the high of the 930 candle and the previous day close candle, and this was a good short entry after confirmation on the lower time frame, that is the 1 minute time frame, to target at least this weekly fair value gap. I had no clue that it would go so much further below, but this was one trade that we could have taken targeting this weekly fair value gap. The next trade that I took was of a 75 minutes time frame. This is the 75 minutes time frame. At the close of the 11:45 candle, we had a 75 minutes fair value gap that was created, highlighted here in purple. The 1 p.m. candle gave us a stab into it and a trade going towards the lower side. This also, after confirmation on a lower time frame, that is the 5 minutes time frame, we could have got a good entry of this 5 minutes fair value gap highlighted here in green. This was a trade that I actually took. I did not wait for the lows. For me, this previous swing low was sufficient. This was an almost 700 points trade on the index, which was good enough for me. The swings were wild and the premiums were high. So I took what I got and I exited. The next day, that is on Tuesday, again price stabbed into this fair value gap, tried to go lower, but then we got a massive push upwards. This bullish momentum for me was confirmed only after I saw a bullish fair value gap on a 75 minutes time frame. Let's have a look. Here we are on a 75 minutes time frame. This bullish momentum for me was confirmed only after we got this bullish breakaway gap at the close of the 1 p.m. candle. So at 2:15, when this candle closed, I was looking for an entry on the upside. There was no entry on the 15 minutes time frame, but I was able to get an entry of the 5 minutes time frame. I'll show you that here. Here we are on a 5 minutes time frame. This is the 210 candle. At the close of this candle, the breakaway gap on a 75 minutes time frame was confirmed. Then we got this normal fair value gap highlighted here in green, and I got my entry of this fair value gap looking for a 1:2 risk reward ratio, which was easily achieved. We are back on the daily time frame. At the close of the Wednesday candle, what we now had was a daily bearish fair value gap highlighted here in orange. So I was a little skeptical trading on Thursday because there was a pretty strong bullish momentum going into this fair value gap, and there was this bullish fair value gap, and I wanted to see what kind of price action we get. Let's have a look on the 15 minutes time frame. Here we are on Thursday. We started the day with a gap up into the daily fair value gap, but there were no 15 minutes fair value gaps giving us an entry going lower. Then we got this bullish fair value gap, which is what we like to see, the kind of manipulation that we want. And then price headed lower. There was this tiny bearish fair value gap that was created, highlighted here in pink, but price never went back into that fair value gap on Thursday. Instead, what we had was a reaction of a 75 minutes bullish fair value gap. I'll show you that. Here we are on a 75 minutes time frame, and we had this bullish fair value gap sitting right here, highlighted in purple. And this was one trade that I took because you got a pretty clear 5 minutes fair value gap to work off. In the afternoon on Thursday, after tapping into the 75 minutes fair value gap, price gave us this bullish 5 minutes fair value gap highlighted here in green, and I took an entry of this 5 minutes fair value gap, just targeting the previous swing high and also a 1:2 risk reward ratio. This was good enough for me. Today, price continued to move upwards. It showed no signs of retracing even after tapping into this 15 minutes fair value gap. I'll show you here on the 15 minutes time frame. We got a strong bullish candle with a close above this fair value gap, showing that it has no intentions of going lower, and price continued to move upwards. There were a couple of good trades we could have been a part of. The first trade came right off the opening, where price tapped into this 15 minutes fair value gap and gave a strong bullish momentum up ahead, and we could have entered off a confirmation of the 1 minute time frame targeting these highs or this bearish fair value gap to see what price does there. This was a pretty good trade. The other good trade that I took was of a 75 minutes fair value gap. Let me show you. Here we had a 75 minutes fair value gap highlighted here in purple, and after price tapped into this fair value gap, we got a pretty good 5 minutes bullish fair value gap right here, and we could have targeted the recent swing high and got a pretty good trade. This was one trade that I was part of. So these were a couple of good trades that we could have taken in the last week. Let's have a look at what we can expect in the coming week. We are back on the daily time frame, and let's see what we can expect in the coming week. Now that we have a closing above yesterday's high and into this daily bearish fair value gap, we know that this fair value gap is not holding. Now the next premium array is this daily order block sitting right here. So your first target is now 50,092.65. This is where we can expect price to head to, and here we could again possibly see some kind of retracement with price coming back and trying to tap into some of the fair value gaps that it has left behind. We can see that for now there are no daily fair value gaps. So let's dive into one time frame lower on 75 minutes. This is the 75 minutes chart. After tapping into this daily bearish order block sitting right here, we could expect a decent bit of retracement coming down. We have been tapping into the normal fair value gaps and getting a decent reaction of it. We have already tapped into this fair value gap, which is also this fair value area or this order block sitting right here. So that has been mitigated. And if we don't get another 75 minutes fair value gap to work off, our next target could possibly be this 75 minutes order block sitting right here. This could make for another good zone to look for longs and start making its way back upwards, but it all depends on what price does after tapping into this bearish order block sitting right here. Another scenario could be that price simply continues to go ahead of some new 75 minutes fair value gap that it creates and targets the all time high, that is 51,133. Nifty is already at all time high levels. So we might see some kind of retracement after hitting all time highs. But if this bullish momentum continues, then we could easily see Bank Nifty also take out this all time high. So right now we are bullish. We are looking for at least a tap of 50,092. After that, we can be vigilant, look for 15-minute bearish fair value gaps to validate our bias on the downside. I would suggest not to enter off the first 15 minutes bearish fair value gap that you see. See if it holds. See if price reacts of it and creates another bearish 15 minutes fair value gap. And you can then take an entry off it and eventually targeting this bullish 75 minutes order block sitting right here at 47,670. All in all, it was a pretty eventful week. So let's see how the next week plays out. Till then, take care and trade smart.